And we're live. All right. So this is week 7 of Linux class. I got started a little late and didn't post the link until just a couple minutes ago. So I apologize for that. And for those of you who may show up or may not show up, I'm going to do a little quick project. I hadn't really planned on doing this, but it's a cool thing. I'm really interested in amateur radio. I'm a ham. I think it's pretty cool just being able to broadcast things wirelessly, and especially, it's kind of always been a passion of mine, and I just think it's cool, and especially knowing the technical stuff behind it. And so a while back, I actually bought a little $10 radio. You can get them on Amazon. It's they call these RTL SDRs. They're a little $10 USB stick you can plug into your computer. I guess this one's $11. You plug it in. It's got a little antenna. Mine is really crappy antenna. It's maybe actually, I almost want to do my webcam just to show what this is. We're going to turn on video here for just a second. Guess I'm going to have to stop sharing for that. Oh, apparently I don't know how to run this thing. There we go. This is my little antenna. This is the little dongle that I have plugged in. This is the USB stick, and this is the radio or antenna. I'm going to plug that into my USB. I'll go back to sharing my screen. And make sure I'm presenting to everyone. All right. And I'm in a basement here. For those of you who showed up, we're in the basement of GMB here. I'm actually going to go over here. I should, if I do a D message, shows me my kernel messages. It says that it's installed. That's cool. That's ready to go. It's the RTL 2832U. There's a program I like to use. It's called GQRX. Let's see if we have it. DNF, search GQRX. Yeah, cool. DNF, install GQRX. Now, you guys, if you have something like this, feel free to use it. This isn't part of the class. You don't have to do any of this. Just so you know, it's just something that's I think is cool. I'll go ahead and install it. Like I said, this isn't, this is more just showing off what Linux can do. This isn't something that you have to install, or if you want to, go for it. And you want to get the $10 thing, it's a cheap way to get into amateur radio. You can get NOAA weather broadcasts. They broadcast their weather across the country on a set of predefined frequencies. The frequency range on this is pretty good. It won't do... I don't think it'll do aircraft frequencies, but it may. I don't remember. I think aircraft are about 120 megahertz. So I installed GQRX. I'm gonna run it now. Cool. It detected my thing there, and so it's running. And since I know. Oops. I know we have a radio station in town. It's 94.9. I don't listen to radio often, but I know this has a pretty strong signal. Yeah. 104.9 might be a little bit better. Yeah, let's see 104.9. That may work. 104.9. Almost something. And with this little tiny antenna, it's kind of hard. We can also go wide FM, I think. I guess not. Let's do stereo. Oh, that's better. Let's crank up the volume a little bit. So yeah, there's audio right there. Now, I have no idea what that is. So that's a pretty cool thing, I think, that Linux can do kind of out of the box. I didn't have to do anything crazy. I didn't have to install any drivers. It just works. Just like a Mac, it just works. So I just wanted to show off kind of that. Like I said, it's a personal interest of mine. And if any of you guys are interested, let me know. I can kind of send you some links on it. But it's not just more than anything, just something cool and fun to do. So that's that. I'm gonna clear this, and I'll actually close this so we can start up. Now for this week, I wanted to do a couple things, particularly file permissions, users, and groups, and then OSEC. And OSEC is actually a pretty cool project. OSEC.net. Oh, so I'm just gonna have to Google it. Oh, osec.github.io. OSEC is a security system. It's a host-based intrusion detection system. It's pretty powerful, and it is, well, at least used to be supported by Trend Micro. I don't think they sell support for it anymore, but it's a nice product. I like it. I use it, and for home use, probably not going to get used all that much. But if you are in any sort of business and you want to make sure you have some security, this is actually pretty cool. And next week, traditionally, we've done Squid as a midterm project. And I think this year, I'm actually going to switch it up a little bit, and I want to do something different. I'm going to do what's called an ELK stack, which is Elasticsearch, Logstash, and Kibana. If you go to elastic.co, yeah, it's elastic.co. They have Elasticsearch, Logstash, and Kibana, also known as ELK, ELK. And this stack allows you to aggregate logs into a single dashboard, and Kibana lets you then make really cool, pretty graphs based on that. And I think it's a pretty cool project. It's relatively complicated in terms of setup, but not so complicated that it's hard to get done. And it's also something new, new content, that I've done different than what I've done in the past. And I hope it helps you guys out in professional lives too. So that being said, let's go into permissions. I think previously we've talked just slightly about permissions. And in Unix, and actually I'll probably need this. In Unix, there are very simple, compared to Windows, file permissions. And you can get more complicated. There are such things as ACLs on Linux, but for the most part, on every Unix system, Linux system, everything, they're all based around 3 different sets of permissions, around 3 different groups, basically. First, there's the owner group, and they can either read, write, or execute. And the reason I'm putting these out as capitalized is these are what they're referred to. So RWX for read, write, execute. Then there's group, read, write, execute. And apparently I can't spell, and it takes me spelling it correctly to learn that. Owner, group, and then the final one is a global. And I don't remember exactly if it's global, but we can talk about it in terms of being global. It's everybody else. I'll put in here everyone. Getting emails all over the place. Is that you?
That was me. I just listened to it.
Okay. So we have these 3 different groups with 3 different permissions. And these are usually written out in this order. So in this case, if you had a file, it was RW and then blank, RW blank, RW blank. That would be each set of 3 corresponds with owner, group, and global or everyone. And then even further, these are boiled down into what they are for binary, because each set of this is a flag. So it's either a 0 or a 1. So in this case, it would be 110, 110, 110. And each one of these 3 numbers is then, you can identify this, 110 in binary is a 6. 110 in binary is a 6, and this is also a 6. If we have RWX, RW dash 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 dash, that means the owner has full read write execute, the group has read write, and nobody else has access. So in that case, we would have 111 11. And I'll separate these out here, like so. 110 and then 000. So this would correspond with 7, 6, and 0. So there are several ways of representing permissions. I'm going to go ahead and do an LL or an LS-L on my current home directory. And you can see there's also this bit over here on the end. I'm not going to worry too much about that. But we have RWX, which is our owner, RX, which is the group, and RX for everybody else. And then a period at the end. And I forget what the period at the end means. And I think that actually is for, no, it's not. I don't recall what the period at the end is for. It does have a meaning. I just don't remember it right now. It doesn't really matter because these 3 sets are what's important. And the D on this one shows that it's a directory. I think if you also had a sticky bit, which I'm also not going to talk about too much, it would be dedicated out here on the end. But when you're setting permissions, you have to worry about these 9 right here. Let's see my public key right here. It's RW, RWR. So that would be RW, RW, and R. So that's 110, 110, 100. So that would be 6, 6, 4. The way binary works, this is the 1's position. It's either a 0 or 1. This is the 2 positions. It's either a 0 or a 4 or a 2. And this is the 4 positions. It's either 0 or 4. So in this case, it is 0 plus 2 plus 4 is 6. This is 1 plus 2 plus 4, which is 7. And then this is obviously 0. In this case, there's only 1 here on the 4 places, so it's 4. So let's say, for example, I want to change the permissions on my pub key 2 to be RW dash R dash dash and R dash dash. So that would be 6, 4, 4. I would use a command called chmod, and I can use the decimal numeric representations, or 644 to pub key. And now if I do an ls-l of pub key, you can see it's rw-rr or rw-r-r-. Chmod, if we do everybody's most helpful command, double dash, it'll show us the options, mode, which is the change the file to mode. Mode is that 644. Or we can add or remove based on UGO and adding or subtracting. So I think this is also known as universal. Is where I think that U comes from. But if we want to just say, to bring it back to where it used to be, we can do chmod group add write privileges, so G plus W, to pub key. Now if we do an ls-l of pub key, I've added write back. I can also just as easily take away write from them. So you can either do it in like this fashion where you say add the write bit to the group, or group plus write to a file, or group minus permission or minus write to a file, or you can just specify what the file mode, which is the permissions, need to be. And I realize this is pretty dense, and honestly, it probably doesn't make a lot of sense until you get into a few things. And there are other permissions and reasons why things wouldn't work even if permissions are set right. One of the most dangerous things you can do is 777. 777 is like removing all permissions or all restrictions on permissions to a file. So if I do a chmod 777 of pubkey, and I'll do an ls-l again, all of these are full. That means anyone, anywhere, can actually go in here and modify this file, or even execute it as if it were a program, which it won't execute because it's not a program. It's not a script. It's just a file. And we know it's just that sort of file because going back a couple weeks now, the file command tells us it's a PGP key block public key. And because of that, if I try running it, /pubkey, it fails horribly because it doesn't know how to run a key file. I mean, and you can't run key files. That's silly. So the reason you don't want to do chmod 777 is that anyone on that system has access to that file and has access to change it. And that can be very dangerous, especially if you're working on a web server that's actually on the internet. If someone compromised your system in any way, they could get in and change that file. That's not a good thing. So I'm going to go back to where it was originally, which was 664, and pubkey. And it's back to what it should be. Oh, I should really make note of this, and I apologize for not yet. Let's look at this file right here. I have a file called Winetricks. By the way, if you install Wine, I highly recommend you install Wine. If/when you install Wine, Winetricks is awesome. You can find it out. And this does relate to what I'm talking about, so bear with me for just a second. You can get the installer here. You can download it. Wine is a Windows emulator. I think we've talked about it previously, but Winetricks allows you to get things set up. Now, when you originally get Winetricks, it won't be able to execute it automatically. So I'm going to do just to emulate what happens here. We're going to do chmod -x of Winetricks, and without specifying a group or a owner or anything with chmod, it removes that permission. So if we do an LL again, Winetricks doesn't have any execute permissions. Now if I do a file of Winetricks, it says it's a POSIX shell script. Okay. And it also even says it's a Unicode text executable. But if I want to invoke it by doing a /Winetricks, it says permission denied. Well, how's that? I own the file. Why can't I run it? That's where you actually have to do a chmod, and I'm just going to do an O+X of Winetricks. Now, if I do an ls, it shows that everyone has access. Everyone has access to execute it now. Who's owner then? You? Well, that doesn't make any sense. Apparently, I need to buff up on my Unix permissions. There is a file system permissions. Hopefully, they'll tell me why my user group and others. Okay, so that's why. I'm going to write that down for you guys. Owner, also known as user. And I'm going to change this one too to others. Sorry, my days of working with Windows has tainted me for using things like owner. But it's user, group, and others. Sorry for the confusion there. I was confused. Maybe you guys weren't. I don't know. Anyway, I'm over here, and we just changed this to be able to. What do you want? Can you pause that?
I gotcha.
Now I can run it, and Winetricks allows me to then. I can install a game. I can install a benchmark. I'll select the default prefix, and we'll, I can run and do all sorts of cool stuff, like install a Windows DLL or component. Here is, if you want to run games, you would need to run some of these things before making them work. Or you can even go in here and install a game directly. It'll install the prerequisites for you. If you want to install the Age of Empires demo, man, they still have that for download. That's awesome. I also think they have Steam in here too to download. I was wrong. But you can do a lot of cool stuff in here. So this I recommend. It's pretty cool, but that's how I can execute it. I executed it because I had permissions or execute permissions to that file. And you can see too, if I do a chmod -x of Winetricks and do an ll, Winetricks is now gray, but when I do chmod +x of Winetricks and do an ll, it's now green because it has the execute bit set. And I now have permissions to execute that file. And that's useful too. For example, I have a Python file here. By default, Linux won't let me run that file without passing that file to the Python executable. If I set that executable or set the executable bit on that file, then the file will actually go out and find the Python interpreter for the system and run it without having me to first pass it to it. So that execute bit just gives me the permission to run it directly, bypassing the step of supplying the interpreter. Oh, excuse me. So, all things said, these are the file permissions that you're going to deal with mostly, and they are kind of complicated because it does deal with binary, but then it converts back to decimal, and it's not the easiest thing in the world to remember. It's always in the form of RWX, 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 and I think for the most part, I know it's confusing, and I hope do some reading and some. This is actually not too bad. The Wikipedia. There's also a lot of other more complicated bits to file system permissions. This is actually a very good example of masking and what all of this means, what the bit masks are. But for the most part, I'm not going to get into any of that. I just want to go over the simple bits of RWX, RWX, and RWX, which is for the user or the owner to be read, write, execute, the group to be read, write, and execute, and others, or global, universal, everyone on the system, read, write, execute. So permissions, I think we've beaten that to death, but there are two parts of permissions that are important to know about, which are the first two things, user and group. On a given, well, any system really, not just a Unix or Linux system, there are actually quite a few users. And if I just do a who am I, it returns my username. Let's say I log in as root. I go, who am I? I'm root. Well, there are at least two users. There are actually others that for running all sorts of different services and daemons. And we can find those by actually doing a cat, etc. password, which is probably or pass WD, sorry, which is probably one of the worstly named files on a Linux system because it doesn't actually have any passwords in it. It used to, which is why it was called that, but it doesn't anymore. So here we have all the different users, which that's actually quite a few. There's root, bin, daemon, ADM, LP, sync, shutdown, halt, mail, alt, operator, games, FTP, nobody. Most of these you can't log in with. For example, RPC. This is a user that shell is no login, meaning this user, this RPC bind daemon user can't log into anything, but it can run certain processes under that permission context. And that's really what this is used for, to isolate programs, particularly for security. A great example of this is running a web server on the internet. If I ran all of my programs on the same computer with the same user, let's say I'm a great hacker and I can hack your web server and I can get in. Now, once I get into the system, whatever command I used to break into your web server is going to be running as the user account that runs your web server. Now, let's say that user is root. Well, because of that, I then have root access to your entire system, and I can go and basically own the box. Now, the reason they separate it out is because if I am not running as root, I'm running as a web services user, and that web services user only has access to files, directories, configurations that are only related to the web service. Well, the attacker only has access to those files. And while that can be a bit of a problem, it's a much less problem than having them have access to the entire box. Because usually in any sort of environment where systems have to do like real work, they generally do multiple tasks. They have multiple services running on them. They might be a web server and a mail server, or they might be a mail server, a web server, some other sort of server like a streaming music server. Could be all sorts of different things. But the point is, if I break one of them and they're all running under the same user context, I have access to everything. So there's a reason why all of these are here, and most of them are because of the services. And in fact, even here it says the RPC bind daemon, Pulse Audio daemon, the SE troubleshooter, default user for running OpenVPN spawned by Network Manager, lots of different users. And we can do a user to add a user. I'm sure you guys have all been waiting for this. To add a user, we can do a user add. I'm just going to do /help because I don't use it that often. And we're going to create a user just for the heck of it. And it's a -m dash. Let's see. I'm just looking at all the options here. Yeah, that'll work. I'll just have it create a user directory for me, and we'll call this user test. So now if we cat that file again, you can see I have a test user account here, right here at the bottom. It's already set up, and it created a home directory for me. I can do an ls of home, and I see I have a test directory there, and nothing in it. But now I can actually, from root, sue to a different user, for example, test. And now who am I? I'm test. And print working directory is home test. Exit out of that shell. Who am I? Who am I? I am root. So I created a user. I logged in, or I actually switched to that user from root. And now I'm back to my local user, or my local user, which is root. And I'm going to delete that user because I don't really need it. User, I think del test. So now if I do a sudo dash to test, it'll tell me that user test does not exist. So I created and deleted a user. Now, very similar to user add and user del, I can also do group add. And we'll do test. And then we can do a user mod to modify a user. I want to add a group of test to Steve. So let's go back. I wonder, I think user mod can also show me. Maybe not. But that should have added the group test to my user account. Let's look. So let's go back into or view the password file. Oh, nope, sorry, I lied. And am I wrong? I am wrong. It's not the password file, it's the groups file. And the group file shows that I am now a member of test. So this is the group name. This is, that was originally the password field in password. I don't know what it is in the group file. I'll have to look that up. Just showing that you don't have to know everything about Linux to be a Linux administrator. Here is the the group ID of the group, and then the users that are in that group. And in my case, most of these groups are empty. In fact, almost all of them are. That's neat. So I'm actually going to do a group del test because I don't need any more. If I cat group, there's no more group called test. So I hope that's as clear as mud. Using groups and users to grant access is a fairly nuanced art, I guess I would say. Doing it right is surprisingly difficult. The concept is very, very simple, and getting the basics, you don't have to know a ton about the basics. Like I said before, this is a fairly introductory class. Knowing just that these things are out there and that you should probably know about them at some point is good. And we're going to be using more and more of this as we go on. And at least knowing about this does help kind of troubleshooting systems and setting systems up. And it's just good overall practices. So all that being said, let's move on to OSEC. And OSEC install is actually relatively easy. I'm going to go to the documentation here. I'm also going to go to downloads. Unlike everything else, I don't believe in the default repositories that we've been working with so far. I don't think if I do a DNF search OSEC. I don't think we're going to find it. We don't find it in here. This thing is going to get shut off quickly. Sorry about that. My phone is blowing up right here. There's nothing out there in the default repositories for OSEC. So we have several options. One of them is to go download it from source, compile it, or we can go out and find the package that we need to install. Jeez, sorry, getting tired. So let's, to do an RPM installation on their download page, it says RPMs for RHEL, CentOS, Fedora, and others. They're available in the Atomic Core repository. Atomic Core it's a cool company name because the name of their company is Atomic Rocket Turtle. They make Atomic secured Linux, which is based off of RHEL or CentOS. They're a cool company. They're into security. They're actually heavily into security. They're actually pretty good company. I like them a lot. We're using Fedora 23, and actually, I could just as easily go here and do what both OSEC and Atomic Core recommends and do this command right here. This command, what it does is it goes and gets a script, a program from Atomic Core site, and then pipes that output. This is the pipe symbol right here, this little bar bracket, and pipes it into a shell. So this is a script. In fact, we can tell it's a script by going open link. It's just text, and it's a configuration script. It runs through its stuff when I pass it to shell. So I'm going to do that, and it didn't do anything. That's neat. Huh. Okay, so I guess the hard way it is. Interesting. Let me do a uname or a cat, etc. Red Hat release, just to make sure that I am running Fedora 23. This etc. at Red Hat release shows what version of Red Hat, particularly, I'm running. Fedora is sponsored by Red Hat, so they put their version number in Red Hat release. So I'm going to go to Atomic Core site. I'm going to go to 23. And I'm going to go to x86-64, RPMs, and they don't have it. That's cool. They don't have a... they don't have a RPM for their... Did I screw something up? What the deuce? Oh, I did. I bet I know why. Ha. So when I originally pasted this in, can anyone spot the error? Hint, right here. This character is not the same as this character. This dash is a little bit longer than this dash. I don't know why, but I bet if I would go back and change this long dash to a short dash, look at that, it works great. Do I agree to these terms? Yes, I do. It's going to install everything. And now, if I do a DNF search of OSEC, it still doesn't work. That's cool. Awesome. You ever have one of those days where things just do not like you? I actually think it's because it doesn't exist. It's good to know that even though so far I've been able to do these things and they just work, it's good to know that sometimes that I'm human too and things don't work as they should. Yeah, their repository is incomplete. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to hack this a little bit. Well, that's okay. You get to learn a little bit more about how these repositories work. I could just as easily go over here to Fedora 22, and I could probably just install the atomic version for 22. In fact, I'm going to take the coward's way out and do that. So I went to this website, which I went from here. They said it's in the Atomic Core repository. I went to that. I know I'm running Red Hat, or not Red Hat, sorry. Yeah. Fedora. And I'm running Fedora 20, and I know 23 is incomplete, so I'm going to go to 22, x86 64, RPMs, which is the format of the package manager. And I'm going to go ahead and just install the previous version by doing a DNF local install of, paste that URL in there. Apparently that hasn't come on over. So we're just going to do a DNF install. See how well that works. Works fine. And so I am installing a repo for an older version of Fedora, but Fedora doesn't change a ton between releases, at least not major changes. And sometimes they do, but for the most part, it's pretty minor between 22 and 23. So we should be okay. But now if we do a DNF search of OSEC, we should see it. Now, after all is said and done, I don't want to install it there. I just want to show you how to install it from there. I'm going to go even harder core than that, and I'm going to go download the OSEC HIDS tarball, and it's downloaded. I actually really wanted to grab the URL from that because I want to wget it. I'm going to copy a link request. I'm going to go back to my thing. I'm going to go wget. I'm going to paste in that tarball. It goes and downloads it. There it is. To untar that, or to extract it, unzip it, if you will, we're going to do a tar-xf of OSEC HIDS. And that creates a folder called OSEC HIDS. We're going to cd OSEC HIDS. And it's got a very helpfully named install file. And if we do an LL, you'll see that it is an executable. You can see that it was green, but it's an executable. So I'm going to go ahead and do an install.sh. And I'm pretty sure I want to do this in English. So I'll keep the default. It's the default here is in brackets, EN. You can install it in Turkish, Srpski, I'm thinking, maybe. Either, what is Srpski? I don't remember. This is Russian, Polish, Netherlands, Dutch, Japanese, Italian, Hungarian, French, Spanish, English, Greek, German, Chinese, and for some reason, Brazilian Portuguese, but not Portuguese, European style. So we're going to do English. It gives us some information, like you're about to start the install. This is Saturn.lactea. My user's root, my host there. That's good, cool. Do I want I want a hybrid, because I want a server and an agent. And var OSEC, well, that works for me. It's the default. Do I want email notifications? Sure. What's my email address? I'll put in my email address. I get plenty of spam as it is. Yeah, sure. That's cool. Do you want to run the integrity check daemon? Sure, yeah. That tells the system that it is running good, like everything is good and has been tampered with. Do I want to run the rootkit detection engine? Well, yes, I don't want rootkits. Do I want to enable active response? Active response is really cool because if OSEC detects that there is an infection, most antiviruses will go out and they'll see an infection and immediately start doing something to it. OSEC is cool because if it sees like a network attack, like someone's trying to actively hack your network, it can actually then respond to that by running some commands. Like say you have an anti-hacker script that goes out and starts collecting information about the hackers that are on your network. So active response is really cool. I'm going to enable that. Do I want to enable the firewall drop response? Sure. Do I want to add more IPs to the whitelist? No, that looks good. Those are mostly DNS servers. These two are just example local addresses. I'm not gonna, well, actually, I think that's my local address that I have. I'm not gonna add anything more because hopefully this won't block everything. Do I want to enable remote syslog? This is a good question. If you're running this in a live production system, you do want to enable this. And in this case, I want to enable it too. Hopefully I'm, still connected. Yes, I'm going to enable that. And so now it's saying, hey, we've got everything ready to go. If you want to monitor any other files, by default, it saw that I have Apache logs. And so it's going to, by default, monitor them. If I wanted to monitor anything else, I can. I'm going to go ahead and enter continue. And now it's going. And the cool thing about this is it's actually, I didn't download a binary. I downloaded source code. And based off of my choices in the configuration installer there, what it's doing is going out and not downloading, but compiling OSEC. Now, there's some secret sauce to this that I was hoping this would break, but it didn't break. And in some ways, that's good because you get to see it work for me, but I can almost guarantee it's going to fail for you. And there's a reason why. I have done development with this. Oh, we do have mirrors. I've done development with this machine, so I have GCC, which is the GNU C compiler, on my system. I can tell that because I can go GCC, and it says fatal error, no input files, compilation terminated. Now you probably don't have GCC, so to install it, you do a DNF-Y install GCC, and that should get OSEC installing for you. Well, you have to get GCC, install it, and then run through this install script again. Now, chances are when the install script runs and you don't have it installed, it'll probably fail fairly quickly. So that's that. What we're going to do now is do a system CTL status of OSEC, and it is inactive dead. So let's just go and start it. Oh, it failed. Lovely stuff. Now it says here it failed because the control process exited with an error code. See systemctl status osec.service and journalctl-xe for details. So because it's being so helpful in giving us the commands to run now, I'm going to run that, and it's saying it failed to start. Why? It doesn't say. Configuration error, no client configured. Okay. Well, that's because I skipped that part. I didn't really mean to skip that part. So up here, when it asked me what the name of my host or server was, I skipped it, and I shouldn't have skipped it. So now we're going to have to go back and do it again. So var OSEC, I think is where I put this, right? Let's go to bin. And let's go to OSEC. So basically what I did was a cd cd var osec bin. That's where I'm at. I'm going to go ls again. I'm going to run manage agents. That is not what I wanted to do. I wanted to do that. I want to do list agents, no agents. Okay, add an agent, a name, Saturn, 127.0.0.1. That's always my loop back. And yes. And then quit. So let's see, just by adding that, let's see if it works. System CTL, start OSEC. Nope, still failed. System CTL, status OSEC, still doesn't like it. So let's do a journal CTL-XE. And this works a little bit like less. You can use your up and down arrows to move around in the log. It starts at the bottom. I can move to the left and to the right. It's saying configuration error at var osec agent osec.conf. So let's go in there and see what the deal is. We're going to do vim, and I'm going to paste in that. And oh yeah, it doesn't have anything in there. So let's go to documentation, my favorite thing. Love documentation. Let's go to getting started. Let's go to agents. We'll go manage agents on. So we already added an agent, which was a local host. That's cool. Now we need to extract the key for it. It looks like, oh, we can do a manage agents on the. Okay, let's try that. I'm going to do an ls and do a pwd. I'm in var osec bin. I'm also going to go back and redo osec agent. Nope. Manage agent. Sorry. Extract the key for 001. And I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to copy it into my terminal because that's important. Or to my text editor because it's important that I have it. I'm going to quit out of this now. And now I'm going to go to a cd var. Why don't I see it in there? I'm now going to var osec agent bin and manage agents there. I should now be able to import a key and paste that key that I just got. And I want to add it. Yes. Okay. Quit. Now if I do a system CTL status or start, sorry, OSEC, it still hates me. Can't win, can I? OSEC.conf. It doesn't even have it in there. Try that again. Paste in the key. That's neat. Yes, that's what I want. Added, quit. This thing's gonna be fun. All right. You know, this is the point where I'm like, well, I can troubleshoot this, or let's just install it from source. Or not from source, but from the repository. We're just going to do a DNF install OSEC or search OSEC. If you guys install it just from DNF, more than happy if you get it working. OSEC -hids -server. Goes through there, installs, good to go. I bet now I have a different service name, which will work, which is probably apparently my system just wants to ding at me. Sounds good. See ya. Was that? Yeah. Let me know. Right. So that worked now that I installed it from packages. So moral of the story is doing things by hand is hard. It's really hard. You run into all sorts of problems. Running things from packages, really easy. So hopefully after all of today, you guys can actually see the power and usefulness of installing things using the package management system. And, you know, I've only humiliated myself just a little bit by, you know, crashing and burning. But I hope it's somewhat educational there. That's all I have for this week. Let me know if you have any problems. There is extra credit if you get the OSEC web user interface installed. Keep me posted if you guys have any questions, concerns, thoughts. I have been awful about getting back with email. I'm sorry. I will. I mean, we've got a pretty stressful life right now, so bear with me. I am trying to get everybody. Can't make everybody happy, but you can make some people happy, and I hope I've been making enough to where it's a majority and not a minority. So sorry I haven't been the best about getting back to you guys. I will try here this evening to go get at least a few emails responded to. So that's it for this week. We will talk to you guys later.